Okay, yeah, I know. I broke this series down a few weeks ago in our play-in series videos that we did. We did that for Vancouver, Minnesota. We did that for Pittsburgh, Montreal. We've made a few videos about Pittsburgh, Montreal, mostly because Lafreniere exists. But this video for Edmonton, Chicago also goes somewhat in the realm of Lafreniere in terms of discussion. Because last time we talked about this series, I said, it's going to be really awesome. We're going to see a lot of firepower. We're going to see some really good, entertaining hockey. But now, I just can't look at this series without getting mad. Does that make sense? Because, when I look at all the other play-in series, there's usually a good team and a bad team. Right? That's something that I think everybody can kind of relate to, subconsciously thinking in your mind, okay, Nashville, Arizona. Nashville is the good team, Arizona is the bad team. You take a look at Toronto, Columbus. Toronto should be the good team, and Columbus is the bad team. But when I look at Edmonton, Chicago, I just see two good teams. And that's not good to me. Because the losers of the play-in series have the ability to, and we now know this because it was confirmed on the draft lottery, get Lafreniere. And normally when you think of Lafreniere, you think, okay, first overall. In theory, who should the first overall pick belong to? It should belong to bad teams. Which is why when I take a look at Toronto, Columbus, I say I want Columbus to lose. Because if there's a team from that series that is going to get a chance at Lafreniere, I don't want it to be Toronto. When I look at Arizona, Nashville, I'd explode with laughter if it was Arizona who got Lafreniere. Not because they're a team that needs him the most, but because it's Taylor Hall and the Taylor Hall curse, etc. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Nashville, I don't think Nashville needs a Lafreniere. Same thing with Vancouver, Minnesota. As much as I love the Vancouver Canucks, Minnesota is probably a team that needs a Lafreniere more. Am I fair in saying that? I think I am. But when it comes to Edmonton, Chicago, oh my goodness, you can say all you want about, Chicago was last in the Central this year. There were only 3 teams in the West that were worse than Chicago this past season, and those were the 3 California teams. I don't care about that. I take a look at the Blackhawks and I say, okay, 2010, okay, 2013, okay, 2015. I take a look at that and I say, yeah, this team is just coming off of Stanley Cup victories. Why do they need another franchise potential talent when they just got 3rd overall last year? Edmonton is in a different spot because Edmonton is legitimately good. Edmonton has built their team up from the ground and we all know how good they are. But the first overall picks, bro! McDavid, Yakupov, Hall, Nugent-Hopkins, and not to mention the dominance that you get out of, gosh darn, Leon Draisaitl, who went 3rd overall in 2014. This Edmonton-Chicago series is officially the most annoying series out of all the play-in series that we have to date, because all the other series have at least one team in them that I would be like, yeah, if Lafreniere went to this team, I would not be upset. But Edmonton-Chicago is different, because both of these teams would just absolutely destroy the hockey world's immune system if they won Lafreniere. Edmonton getting another first overall pick. Lafreniere, McDavid, then you got, my goodness, I just can't believe that. Imagine a power play of Lafreniere, McDavid, Yamamoto, Draisaitl, and whoever you want on the blue line. That sounds terrible. I don't want that. I don't want to see that. As for Chicago, you guys got Kirby Dach last year. That's already a really good, highly touted draft pick. What makes you think an Alexis Lafreniere is fair when you guys still have 80-point producing Patrick Kane, 30-goal Dominic Kubalik, and a boatload of trophies that go along behind those names in Toews, Keith, Crawford, Kane, etc., spanning the past decade? There is no reason for anybody to sit here and believe, whether you're a Blackhawks fan or an Oilers fan or not, that these teams deserve Lafreniere. And back when we talked about this series all the way a few weeks ago, when we brought up the different points and actually analyzing what's going to go down in the best of 5 series between the Blackhawks and the Oilers, that whole aspect of Lafreniere wasn't there. because we didn't know that the first overall team would be a play-in series loser. And now that that dynamic is introduced into the picture, it makes me just super tainted in looking at this series, and I curse both of these teams under my breath, because the possibility of either of them getting Lafreniere, although very prevalent, is very, very disgusting to me. But that doesn't take away from the idea that this series is still going to be super entertaining. And because we're on this topic, I guess we could get into who I de facto would be okay with losing. And that would be Chicago, because Chicago is on paper the worst team. I get that. If the playoffs were normal and if the standings were the way they were, then Chicago wouldn't be in here. Chicago was one of the last teams that barely squeaked into the play-in series because the NHL just tried to work things around so they could get Montreal and Chicago into this event. And we talked about this back in the original video a few weeks ago that, yeah, the NHL is losing out on so much money. We talked about that in the video yesterday too, the CBA and the escrow and the money cuts and all that, the salary cap not rising. It's all catastrophic in my opinion. But because the NHL lost out on so much money due to the beer bug infecting the world, they need to do everything they can to get the most revenue back with this new play-in series and playoffs that they're going to conduct. And if that includes Montreal and Chicago, two teams with very, very exhibited NHL fan bases, then, you know, it makes sense. And obviously, looking at these teams, some of them, you're taking a look at them, you're saying, yeah, well, they wouldn't have made the playoffs anyway. They sucked. Sure, Chicago may have been in that boat, and sure, Montreal was in that boat. I get that. But, you know, there was, 10 games left in the season for most of these teams, so anything could have happened, and there is a very small, but albeit existent likelihood that maybe a Blackhawks team could have rallied their way into the final 16. Who knows? I don't want to say it was definitely going to happen, but the possibility was there. But the fact is, the Oilers were already just so gosh darn good. Draisaitl carried this team on his back when McDavid was gone. And when McDavid was in the lineup, the guy got 97 points. Nugent-Hopkins has proved himself as a really good depth scorer and one of the best in the league at that aspect this season. And Kailer Yamamoto came out of nowhere as an ultimate catalyst on a line that already featured Draisaitl. This team does not need any more good players. Connor McDavid is just the best player in the world. And you also have, the best German player in the world, who is probably one of the best, top 5 players in the entire world. This team does not need the best prospect in the world, too. Are you kidding me? For Chicago, I know what I said about Chicago. It's just, the fact is, I would not want to see them get Lafreniere after having a decade of Patrick Kane and Toews and Keith and Crawford and dominating the playoffs and getting another good draft pick last year. I would not want to see Lafreniere go to that team. But when you compare that team to Edmonton, then, you know, I would rather see Chicago get it. And I'm pretty sure most people share that same sentiment. Does Edmonton really need its 5th first overall pick in a decade, while already having some of the best forwards in the entire world? No, they absolutely do not need that. Lafreniere playing next year with McDavid and Yamamoto and Draisaitl on a power play? I don't want to think about that. At the same time, Lafreniere with Kane does not make me feel too great either, but I would rather have that than the Oilers situation. Now, of course, there is still only a 1 in 8 chance that the loser of Edmonton-Chicago will win that Alexis Lafreniere pick. 1 in 8 is a lot, though. Seriously? We talked about this in the Vancouver video a few days ago, but 1 in 8? 12.5%? That's higher than all of the Vancouver Canucks odds at number 1, even when they were the second worst team in the league in 2017. That sucks. That is so unfortunate for teams that have actually deserved getting good quality prospects in the draft and high draft picks. But let's just hope that the winner of Lafreniere, whoever that may be, is a team that actually deserves him. A team that when we look at the play-in series, we subconsciously think to ourselves, yeah, that's a bad team. That's a team that could definitely use the services of a Lafreniere going into the long term, and a team that Lafreniere going to actually makes sense and helps out the parity of the league. If it's a bad team like Montreal, then boom, okay, awesome, I love it. If it's a team like Columbus, I don't want to say that they're a bad team, but they could use a Lafreniere. If it's a team like Florida, they could use a Lafreniere. These teams are the teams that I could say, yeah, I'd be okay with that, but not Edmonton or Chicago. If I had to choose one, it would be Chicago, but that's only because they're going up against the 4-time first overall Edmonton Oilers team, and that really does not feel great. Edmonton-Chicago is the worst series that I'm going to pay attention to this upcoming play-in, and it's going to be really entertaining, I get that, but like it's going to be really frustrating seeing whoever loses get that 1-in-8 opportunity. So comment down below if you share the same sentiments. I hope you enjoyed this video. /Trolls99, and bye.